All right, we are ready for another show of Not Pop. Let's see what we got here today. Again, we're going to hit three bands, I think. Actually, I don't think, I know, because they're sitting here right in front of me. And they're kind of across the board. But again, just sort of pulling them off the shelves of my collection. And I've always thought of myself as sort of what I call a musical pantheist. I worship at the altar of pretty much everything. And I can find some sort of redeeming value that I can extract from almost any music style. These aren't that representative of that kind of variety, but really, I'm a music geek. What can I say? How's that for that's my confession for today. Yes, some confession amongst all of us. We're all that way. Anyway, I ramble, as always. Thin Lizzy, we're going to talk about today. Then we're going to talk about Mink Deville. And then we're going to go real left field. You Canadians you're going to smile right away. We're going to talk about Max Webster. All right, you Canadians, you can start laughing. For the rest of you, you probably have never even heard of Max Webster, but you will as of today. So, where do we begin? I just picked up the Thin Lizzy. Let's talk Thin Lizzy. Chinatown. This is considered a record that when they were in decline. Phil Lynott was in the throes of heroin addiction, really struggling creatively, having a hard time, had been for a while, had hepatitis in 75, 76, which derailed their first U.S. tour when they were really starting to make an impact. I remember that because I had tickets to the show in Boston, and they had to cancel because he was ill. And I love everything that Thin Lizzy did during their time. I think this was, in their records, this was an uptick as they approached the end. There's some records like Thunder and Lightning and Renegade that have some amazing rock songs on it. But this one didn't have as many duds as a lot of albums from Lizzy from 77 to 83 tended to have. One really crappy ballad. Phil wrote a lot of lousy ballads, in my opinion. Fans over in the UK beg to differ from what I have read over the years. But this one featured Snowy White, who played with Pink Floyd for a long time and actually had Midge Ure from Ultravox playing on it because they were partying buddies, evidently. And I believe Glenn Matlock from the Sex Pistols was hanging out at these sessions as well. But there's a lot of really good songs here on this record. Not a lot of great Thin Lizzy songs, but songs that really embody the classic Thin Lizzy style that fans of the band really embrace. And I think it's one of the overlooked records in the catalog of Thin Lizzy, which, by the way, in the UK has seen a significant major upgrade, and there's a lot of anniversary 2 CD versions of most of their catalog. Actually, I think all of their catalog at this stage has received this treatment now. They're fairly reasonable. You can get them here in the United States for about $20. And a lot of the earlier CD versions for a lot less. So anyway, Thin Lizzy, if you are a fan of 70s hard rock, this is actually a really quite a good album and off the beaten track. One of my favorite singers, two of my favorite singers of all time, real quickly, are Frankie Miller and Mink Deville. Mink Deville from New York City just had a really kind of, I don't know, sort of a barrow, calypso, Cajun, R&B, soul kind of style to him. His music, he died sadly some years back. And I don't know, not an acquired taste. I think that he's just so overlooked by music fans. So few people, at least here in the States, are even aware of the vast catalog that this guy did, almost all of which is really good, and some of it just downright awesome. This is a twofer of the first two records of his, Cabretta and Return to Magenta. And his next record after this, his third one, Le Chat Bleu, is my favorite. And I'm going to put a link below here for that one too for you to check out. But you know, everything that Mink Deville, later Willie Deville, represented is captured in these two CDs, I think, really well. And when you hear the sound bites below, I think you're going to agree. If you're, I don't know, just an open-minded music fan willing to explore and experiment and discover something new, this could be a major find for many of you. There's not a really great best of compilation. I've checked them all out over the years that I can recommend. He's one of those rare artists where you just, if you want to explore and check out, you just got to start buying his records as he meant them to be heard. So the best place to begin is with his first, this one, Le Chat Bleu. Next up, we have Max Webster. Max Webster. They still play around, is my understanding.
And up in Canada. Canadian bands from this era, from the 70s and 80s, have very loyal, devoted up there in their homeland, and they continually support their own, which is really, really awesome. Now, Max Webster, I don't even know how to describe Max Webster. My understanding, this band was all about the live show. I never saw them live. I don't think they toured the United States maybe once or twice. They were on Mercury here in the States, but they didn't have a sound. I don't think they ever wanted to have a sound. This was a band always restless in what they did. Some of the things that these songs reminded me, I wrote these down, was they got a prog rocky kind of Kansas, early Kansas kind of sound. Definitely album-oriented rock kind of stuff. They had a lot of humor with some of their songs, sounding very much like the Tubes. A lot of their songs sounded like the Little River Band when they started to go for sort of a top 40, trying to find a hit, whether that was from record label pressure or from their own sort of trying to, hey, why not? Let's have a hit. And then other times they had sort of the new wave kind of spunk that you hear with a lot of bands as well. A lot of it, most of it, on all their records. I've heard all of them from the 70s and early 80s. Can't really recommend, but each one always had one or two great songs on them that I just sort of geek out on. A few of them are here below. This particular one is called Diamonds, Diamonds, and it's a compilation of some of the earlier stuff when they were on Anthem Records, which was a big label in the 70s up in Canada. And spotty still to my taste, but there's one song on there that just kicks my butt still, called High Class and Borrowed Shoes. It's going to make you smile more than likely. As always, leave your comments to disagree, say right on, or just whatever. Share your opinion with whatever. And I've been curious what artists, kind of like Mink Deville, for me, that you have. Just these criminally overlooked, amazingly talented singers that had large bodies of work, especially in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, that were critically overlooked, certainly commercially overlooked, and but were still listened to and appreciated and garnished with respect by people like us that were really into the music and sort of only quietly listened to in bedrooms, because there wasn't a lot of people to share these kinds of artists that music fans back in the day were listening to. Now, with the explosion of the internet, it's a lot easier for us to reach out and say, hey, check this band out. It's like, oh, I've always listened to them. Anyway, that will do it for